Good evening from London. It's a bright, sunny June evening here. And hello to all dear comrades, friends and supporters from Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, chairman of the Korean Friendship Association and official delegate of KFA for the UK, President of the Association for the Study of Songun Politics, and of course the owner of this very channel, Songun 007, the voice of Songun and Juche in the UK. Now I haven't been around on YouTube for a bit, so I thought I'd better bounce back, and I'm going to give you a double bill today. And I'm sure a lot of people will guess what my first video of the two is going to be about. Yes, it's going to be about the British Brainwashing Corporation, who have launched a very severe propaganda attack on people's career. It's one of the worst sort of efforts they've done so far. And I think it's very important to expose the lies of the BBC and defend people's career. And it's also significant that today the Daily Mail, publication that we associate with supporting fascism in the 1930s, carried a sort of review of the offending programme and said that the DPRK should be invaded. They were saying the only way to save the people of the DPRK was an outright imperialist invasion. So this shows the depth and the gravity of the propaganda offensive that is being staged against people's career. And of course it never actually went away. It was always there, but all of a sudden they're sharpening the propaganda against the DPRK, meaning that there will be attempts to overthrow the socialist system in the DPRK. And of course we've got massive military exercises being conducted by the South Korean fascist puppets and their masters, the US imperialists. Now, the BBC alleged famine and starvation in people's career. Now, if the BBC was right about the DPRK, because they've said many times before that the DPRK is on the brink of famine, there's a famine in the DPRK, there's mass starvation. They said this countless times. In fact, it's sort of difficult to count up the number of times they've said it. But if they were right, by now everybody in the DPRK would have starved to death, and not once but probably several times. I can remember visiting the DPRK back in June 1996 when there was supposedly this quote-unquote famine in the DPRK, and not only was there supposedly a famine and mass starvation and people supposedly dying from hunger on the streets, and even bodies floating down rivers, according to a certain celebrity defector. They actually also said that the DPRK was going to collapse, quote unquote. And of course the DPRK did not collapse. It's still with us 27 years later, and it is still going strong, and it is defending its independence and shaking the imperialists all the time. Anyway, when I visited the DPRK in June 96 as part of a delegation of the Juche Idea Study Group of England, which is now the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea. We did not see anyone dying from hunger or begging on the streets, and in fact the DPRK's population actually increased during this period. This is according to World Bank statistics. My experiences are recounted in the best-selling book, The Famine That Never Was. I will put a link in the description, and also Travels in the Land of Juche, Korea, which you can get free of charge. And when visiting the DPRK in the 1990s, and we asked whether there was a famine, because there were all these reports in the newspapers and TV at the time, the reply came, "Ours is socialist country," quote unquote. And of course socialism and famine are generally not compatible, because a socialist system is based on serving the needs of the people. And it can be argued that the famines that have occurred in many countries are not the result of natural disasters, but of the capitalist system and of imperialist exploitation. And in the DPRK, neither of those exist. In fact, the DPRK supplies food at low cost to the people. There is also free housing, and taxation was abolished in 1974. So I think this is sort of totally incompatible with the idea of famine and mass starvation. In the DPRK, the state provides everyone with 500 gram of tofu, 300 gram of rice, 2 eggs, 250 gram of fruit and bread and bakery products, and 2 litres of beer daily. Interestingly, UN Food and Agriculture Organisation statistics that I saw show rice consumption as being 271 grams per day per person, which would make 3 big rice meals. Now, some people will say, they will say, but the UN and the US sanctions are crippling the country, so there must be a famine. Such people overlook the fact that the DPRK is based on Juche and on self-reliance, so it can actually withstand the sanctions. And visiting the DPRK in 2017, 2018 and 2019, I can honestly say that I saw no effect from the sanctions. Prices in the shops in 2019 were the same as in 2018. And I think, there's a general issue with the British left, is that they overlook self-reliance. They don't understand self-reliance, they don't understand Juche. There's the idea that somehow the DPRK was a dependency of the Soviet Union, so it couldn't survive after the USSR collapsed. Well, it's still here 30 years later. And in general, I think British left is far too influenced by both revisionism but also Trotskyism. The old Trotskyite myth that you cannot build socialism in one country, or you can only build socialism in a big country. And I think this influences a lot of people's thinking, unfortunately. It's a barrier that supporters of People's Korea and advocates of the Juche Idea must break through. Anyway, back to the BBC. The BBC is not an independent or impartial broadcaster, as some people try to allege. It's actually the propaganda arm of the British state, a propaganda arm of British imperialism, which is allied to US imperialism. BBC staff are positively vetted, meaning that communists and communist sympathisers and leftists cannot get jobs in the BBC. So usually BBC staff are people who are fanatically anti-communist, and the BBC's external reporting is under the control of MI6, the British Secret Intelligence Service. So, I mean, the British Broadcasting Corporation, or British Brainwashing Corporation as we call it, is very much the state broadcasting arm of British imperialism and the British ruling class, and also US imperialism, because British imperialism is allied to US imperialism. BBC staff often come from very privileged backgrounds. A lot of them went to private schools. They are very middle class and bourgeois in outlook. They're paid huge salaries and perks like private health care and free wine delivery. So they think themselves as being very much part of the system. As to the programme that was shown last night, the fact is, and it needs to be stressed very strongly, the BBC does not have reporters inside the DPRK. In fact, the borders of the DPRK were closed in January 2020 and remain closed. Therefore, the BBC has no access whatsoever to anyone in the DPRK, nor would actually anyone in the DPRK want to speak to the DPRK to betray their socialist country by speaking to scum like the BBC. To make matters worse, the British Brainwashing Corporation claimed that it actually carried out interviews with DPRK citizens with the help of the so-called Daily NK. Now, the Daily NK is a South Korean propaganda outfit that is linked to the US Central Intelligence Agency, the South Korean National Intelligence Agency, as well as ultra-rightists, fascists and South Korean Nazis. It receives its funding from the US government-funded National Endowment for Democracy. Even the South Korean Unification Ministry actually once criticised the Daily NK, saying its flood of raw, unconfirmed reports just complicated efforts to understand the DPRK. And the fact that the BBC admits that the Daily NK were involved proves that it is a fake story. Such interviews would have been fake, because the Daily NK also does not have people inside the DPRK. Any interviews would have been carried out in South Korea. Would have been totally fake. So there you have it. The British Brainwashing Corporation has teamed up with the South Korean fascist puppets and the US imperialists to produce criminal and toxic anti-DPRK propaganda. We should never forget or lose sight of the fact that the recent BBC attack on People's Korea is just one part of a massive, orchestrated and coordinated anti-DPRK propaganda campaign a conspiracy against People's Korea. So, reject the lies of the BBC, defend People's Korea, defund the BBC, cancel your licence fee if you're a BBC TV licence payer, and we must do more to strengthen our campaigning in support of People's Korea, and you can do that in a number of ways. One of which is by actively supporting KFA UK and the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea. Thank you for listening today. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel Songun 007, please consider subscribing, and also, if you can, win others to subscribe to the channel. Share content from the channel as much as you can, especially this video, because it's so important that we defeat the lies against People's Korea. You can support us in all sorts of ways. Please buy our publications. There'll be a link to the lulu.com author spot, and above all, support us by participating in our events, both online and in real life, and we can have an anti-US weekend solidarity with People's Korea on the 24th to 25th of June, so please check that out. Again, thank you for listening. Have a great evening or a great day if you're watching from abroad, and I'll be back soon with another video, so stay tuned. Goodbye, see you later.